Here I'm going to show you my process for organizing footage and for bringing it into Premiere to start the process of editing. So first off, to recap, I really like organizing my footage by day. So you'll see here I have the date and a little bit the location of where I was. That really helps me remember where things were. And so usually if someone wants a shot, I can actually pull it up pretty quickly because I'll remember where I was when I filmed it, and I can pull up the project and then go to the date and location and pull it up then. Sometimes I'll have to figure out, remember which camera did I use. So for every day I like having the camera. Even if it's something I filmed with my phone, I like bringing it in. That way I have everything right there by camera, or in this case the Ninja was an external recorder. So as going into Premiere now, so you'll see over here that I have just 4 simple folders over here. One is this is a project I've already been working on, so I have kind of assets where I'll have all sorts of website logos, stuff like that. Color mats, captions. I also have audio, so any kind of soundtracks that I'm using. And then I'll also have a footage folder. So you'll see this footage lines up fairly similarly to how it was in the Finder window. If you go in, you'll see it's by camera. Is all in there, organized that way. So this is just very helpful for organization processes. And also my sequences folder, you'll then see that I have a folder named B-roll where I actually go in and also basically have a separate sequence for each camera that I'm using. That's in part because of the fact that sometimes the cameras have different sequence settings, and so I like being able to have, for example, if I'm filming with one of the cameras that's in 4K, such as a drone, I like being able to have that its own sequence setting just because the footage plays back the best. So what my process for working with footage is I will pull in basically all the footage from one camera into one sequence, and then I like to go through the footage. I'll skim through, and then basically I want to find clips that I like. So my goal is to basically be able to identify different clips that I'm going to be happy with, or that I could potentially see myself using down the road. So in this case, for this one day alone, I had about an hour of footage. And so when I'm going on my edit, I don't necessarily want to think through, and I'm looking for some good clips. I don't necessarily want to have to think through all our hour of footage to find the ones that I want with regards to that particular day. So it's helpful to look through it because sometimes I do remember, oh, there was a shot that was helpful. Let's go back and find it. But in this case, one of the things I want to do is just go through. I'll look through all the footage, and then I make a few cuts in the clip and then raise it up to the video level 2 in this case. So in this case, this will be one of the shots that I decided I like the shot, and I've gone through, selected everything that I want to use. And in this case, this was a story about a woman with 7 kids whose husband was killed in the Dominican Republic. And so I selected all the shots here, and then what that allows me to do is basically go through, select all of them, and then I can go into a separate sequence and basically just paste it in and delete the empty space. And the way I do that is I'll go through in Premiere after I've copied everything. Go through, paste it on. You'll see there's all these annoying spots. So the little trick there is you can have basically a simple color mat. If you drag it over the top window, and then with these clips, just drag them up, drag them down, and then I'm going to go here and just ripple delete, which is in this case shift function delete. As you can see, that deletes all the empty spaces. So what that basically allows me to do is that now, when I go to work on my interview, I have about 3 minutes of some of the best shots that I want to use in this particular video. And so now, as I'm going to look through things, I don't have to search through an hour and say, what clip do I want where? I just know that I have the best clips right here. All right. So once I have the best B-roll selected, what I'll do is I'll be able to go into the interview sequence of that person. So in this case, I have the waveform enabled, so you can see where she is talking. So basically, I followed a similar process where all I did was I went through everything. I found the clips, I listened through it, found the clips that I thought were the most important for the story, and I raised them up another level. Because the ideal thing is when you're working on a story, you don't want to have to deal with processing everything at once, but you really want to break it down into manageable sections that you can make decisions based on fewer options. So it's kind of like if I were to give you an option, would you like to have to eat, and I gave you 8 options, it might be a little bit overwhelming. But if I said, hey, would you like to have, the beef or the chicken, I know all of a sudden that becomes a lot easier. So you want to do that for yourself in the editing process, is consistently give yourself less and less options to choose from so that you can make decisions quicker. So in this case, once I went through, I listened through, picked out some of the, the takes. In this case too, we were working with an interpreter, so that's why it looks like she's not talking for big chunks of time. But I went through the whole process, selected them, and then compiled them into a sequence here. So once I've gone through, what I can do is I can then, for example, select some of the best takes in the interview, and I'm going to go over here to a sample interview. So once I'll go into a separate sequence, I can then delete the empty spaces into them. And once I have my interview set down, so let's say I've kind of whittled it down to about a minute or so of some of the best takes, what I'm able to do then is I like to take one of the sample sequences, put it down in half, and then I can basically start looking at the B-roll. And so what this would allow me to do is to basically go through, I have my story down below at one level, and I can basically start going through, picking some of the best takes that I want. Usually you kind of start off with some sort of, establishing clip at the beginning, drag it in at the top. Obviously maybe allow a little more space for things. Once you have that, then I can basically just start going through this whole process and dragging clips in. In this case, I don't want the audio files, so I'm going to basically, I can mute it if I don't want to, that whole track, but keep them there. And so I think you kind of get an idea of the process. It's just a matter of going through, finding shots, the detail shots that kind of make things interesting, and then dragging them through, so that way you can go from her talking to shots of B-roll. But as I said earlier, we are often now just completely hiding, the talking head. And so one of the things that we've realized is that if you start off with, not her in this case, but let's say we start off with, a woman, kind of like this talking, like you instantly know who the story is about. If I were to show you several consecutive shots of someone, working, so if you hear someone's voice and see, 3 consecutive shots of one person, you're going to know that hey, this is a story about her, and you don't necessarily have to show her talking at all. But that's just kind of a general overview of how I would go about the process of organizing my footage and then being able to whittle things down to make things a bit simpler and simpler, so that finally, it would look a little bit more like this story right here, where I have a soundtrack that I brought in. I've also added captions up here. As you can see here, I have added captions, which would be another separate thing because this interview was in Haiti and French. So I've gone through, added captions, where basically you can go open a caption layer, pull it up over here. You can start typing things into to this section here that include her captions that you want to have included in the video. Next, I'm going to show you where to get soundtracks from.